Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth and this is Sony Simplified. If you were on my previous session about an hour ago, thank you so much and I apologize for all of the commotion. Can't help the weather, tree fell in front of the house and my dogs like to bark. So thank you so much for sticking with me. I apologize and let's just jump right into this. So my name is Elizabeth, like I said, and this is Sony Simplified. This is a chance for us, Sony, to interact with you, our customers. Make sure you jump inside our chat, say hi, let me know which camera you're using. We get to go over all of our favorite products and some of our most popular products as well, and give you some of our user tips and tricks for you, okay? Today on Sony Simplified, I'm gonna talk about our kit lens on the A7 IV, the 28 to 70 millimeter, 3.5 to 5.6. And we're going to compare the kit lens with the 50 millimeter 1.8, or what I like to call the nifty 50. I'll compare those two lenses with some of the obvious features for you. I'm then going to show you some sample photos where I'm showing you what bokeh is versus background blur. I'm then going to show you a couple side-by-side photos that I took with the kit lens and also with the nifty 50. And at the very end, make sure you hang out with me until the very end. I'm going to do a live demonstration of how I like to change all of the settings to either blur my background or unblur, keep everything nice and in focus for you, okay? I also have David here with me as well. He's my producer. He's doing all the hard behind the scenes work and showing you all those cool fancy photos as I flip through them, okay? So without further ado, let's just go ahead and begin. So let's talk first about the 28 to 70 millimeter kit lens 3.5 to 5.6 and our nifty 50. Side-by-side comparison, we can see our nifty 50 is much smaller than our kit lens, about an inch. So you're backpacking, you're putting your camera in your fanny pack, anything like that, this is gonna fit a lot smaller for you and be much more compact, okay? This one, a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier, but honestly, still nice and small for a zoom lens. The other thing I wanna talk about differences is the focusing speed. This is a zoom lens. Because it zooms, it does focus a little bit faster than what a prime lens is going to focus as. So when you're doing moving subjects, like your dogs or like your kids, you wanna photograph them with a nice fast shutter speed and also that lens that can focus fast enough. This will focus a lot faster on your children than this will, okay? The other thing I want to talk about is prime versus zoom. Now, this is a zoom lens. It zooms in and out for you. Crazy, right? So you can go from 28 millimeters all the way out to 70 millimeters. As you zoom, your aperture will also change. So this is a 3.5 to a 5.6 for you. So when you're at 28 millimeters, you could be at a 3.5. When you start to zoom, you can no longer ever again be at that 3.5. You're now going to be at 70 at a 5.6. All of the photos that I took, because I was comparing to the 50, I took them with the lens at 50 millimeters zoomed, and the aperture then becomes about a 4 to a 4.5. Your 50 millimeter 1.8, your nifty 50, does not zoom. It is a prime lens. What that means, if I want to get closer to my subject, I have to physically move my feet and walk. If I want to get further away from my subject, I got to physically move my feet and walk away. But the major benefit is you get an aperture of 1.8, okay? What that means is you can allow in a lot more light. The more light you let in, the more you can defocus and blur that background, the more creative you can get with your photos or your videos, whatever it is, whatever your creative passion is, the lower the f-stop, the more light you can let in. Well, enough about that. Let's just show you some great photos. I'm checking chat here. I don't see anyone popping into chat make sure if you're here, give me a shout out. Let me know that you joined us for the 5 o'clock round, okay? Now, David, go ahead and let's show him the first photo. Let's show him that pork chop. No, not dinner, guys. This is my dog. This is Pork Chop, okay? He is my beloved. This first photo I want to show you is actually what true bokeh can look like, okay? So right above Pork Chop's head, there's some lights there that are becoming round and becoming cylinder. That is bokeh. Bokeh is when you are able to take that light and make it nice and round and really blur that. That's true bokeh. The next photo that we have for you is, again, Pork Chop. And this is a combination of bokeh and background blur. So you can see a little bit of bokeh right there on the tail lights, but you also see that background blur kind of with those trees happening above the head, right? The last photo I'm showing you, you're able to bokeh without real actual light bulbs, okay? So with this one, in between the trees in the background, we actually still have sky. And that sky is a light, or that is a lighter light source than what the trees are, and the camera is bokehing that, okay? So that's different variations of background blur and bokeh. Now I want to show you some sample photos that I took with the 28 to 70 millimeter kit lens, and then also with the nifty 50 for you. Give me 1 second here. Let's see. Okay. Then I'm getting a team call. Side by side. Thank you. Side by side, I'm going to show for you guys. The side by side, the very first one that I want to show you is my no climbing photo. Okay. This one was taken with the 28 to 70 millimeter kit lens. Again, I'm zoomed out to 50 and my aperture was about a 4 to a 4.5. You can see the background there. The background is kind of distracting, right? You're not adding much to the photo. You could take this photo kind of on your phone, right? It was taken on the kit lens, but there's nothing super creative about this photo. Now, with the nifty 50, the 50 millimeter 1.8, that background is more smooth, right? It's kind of blurred out and you're not seeing sharp lines of the tree edges anymore. But the fence is still nice and straight. So your foreground is not affected while it's blurring that background. The next sample photo side by side that I'm going to show you is a really boring image. Honestly, it's a sticker of a dog telling you, or a sticker of a dog telling you to clean up after your pet on a post. And there's a lot going on in that background. I don't know if I'm looking at the background or if I'm looking at the sticker, right? It's kind of, Well, in walks the nifty 50, the 50 millimeter 1.8. Look what happens to that background. It melts away. It's less of a distraction and a lot more of helping you emphasize on the image and what the photographer wanted you, the viewer, to focus on. So I can take something super boring, like a dog sticker, and I made it a little bit more interesting with my nifty 50. This is definitely a lens that I think every photographer, videographer should have in their bag. Okay, if you don't have it already, make sure you pick it up. Checking in here with chat. So I see Washington. Awesome. I'm glad you're here with us. Where can I rent these? That's a great question. There's various different places for you to rent. We'll respond to that one a little bit later in the chat, and we'll let you know different places that you can rent them, okay? Now that I've showed you some sample photos and some side-by-side ones, I really want to show you how you can actually blur your background. How is it that you can bokeh? Bokeh, okay? So there's a couple different ways to do it. Because for your background blur, we're going to be focusing and using your aperture. Your aperture is really what helps you blur your background or focus in on your background. Your camera has a setting. It's aperture priority. It's the A on the dial. You can shoot an aperture priority, and when you shoot an aperture priority, the photographer, the videographer, gets to choose the aperture. And then the camera chooses the ISO or chooses the shutter speed. The ISO for you, that's going to decide how grainy and how pixelated your images are. I like having full control over my creative style. From the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO, I want to be able to really show my creative and my artistic style. So I like full control. So I don't like shooting in manual or shooting in aperture. I do actually shoot in manual. And so when I demonstrate for you today, I will be shooting in manual, okay? What you cannot see off camera, just so you are aware, I have my second camera set up for you. It is an A7 IV. It is attached to our vlogging grip. So it is on the ACC VC1 for you. You can either use this as a handheld grip, or my preference is going to be a tabletop tripod. I have that set up for you. And then I have different little subject matters that I will be photographing for you, okay? The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lens on my camera. And as I do this, still checking in there with the chat. Make sure if you're here with me, you drop something in the chat and you let me know where you're at, what you're shooting with, what your favorite lens is. Putting the lens on the camera, getting it into position, making sure we're all good here. Bear with me here as I just make sure I can see what I'm doing. Awesome. Okay. And David, I'll let you know when I'm ready for you to. All right. Perfect. Okay. And you, David, when you're ready, I believe you can see my aperture, my shutter speed, and everything is on the camera. Perfect. Okay. So if you can see, I kind of already have my background blurred here for you, and my exposure is set for you, okay? My shutter speed is 1/160. My f-stop is f1.8. My exposure is 0.0, and that's what I want. That is perfect exposure. And then my ISO is 200. The first thing, since this is already set up, I'm going to unfocus my background for you. So if you see right here, this is my wall, and now my hand is not in focus and it's nice and blurred. I'm going to bring the detail back into that wall so you can see the texture, okay? There's also, I'm on my desk right now, or the objects are on my desk, and there is this right here as well. Go ahead, put in the chat, what do you think that is, right? Let's take some guesses, see if anybody could figure out what that piece of black is. And as I unblur the background, the winner, you get kudos, virtual high five. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, because we're working with blurring your background, is I'm going to adjust the aperture. If you don't know where the buttons are on your camera, don't worry. I've actually done a previous Sony seminar to let you know where all of your buttons at. David will go ahead and drop that link. So if you need to know, you can go ahead and follow that link, and it's called Meet the Buttons, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is adjust my aperture. It's currently at an f1.8. The wheel on the front of my camera is my aperture. I'm going to make that an f22, okay? So as I do that, the frame is going dark, and that's what I want. It's going to allow in less light. Obviously, I'm not going to take a photo like this. So the next thing I want to do is adjust my shutter speed. My shutter speed is back here on the back wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust my shutter speed. And as I adjust my shutter speed, it's still dark. I'm going to give it a slower shutter. Still dark. Now the rule, so you know, for your shutter speed is when you are shooting handheld, so when you're holding your camera, you want your shutter speed 1 over nothing less than the focal length. So I'm currently 1/50, okay? Because I'm on a tabletop tripod, I don't have to leave it over 1/50. I can go into a slower shutter speed, but it's not really affecting, okay, we're getting more light, but now I'm into seconds, I don't want seconds, right? What if something's moving? So I'm gonna go back to 1/50, even though I'm on a tabletop tripod. I still wanna go back to 1/50. I like that focal length. The last thing I wanna adjust now is my ISO, because I'm still super dark, right? And way underexposed. So the wheel on the back of the camera I pressed, and now I'm going to increase my ISO. The number is going to go up. As that number goes up, the image gets brighter and brighter. And right about here, wow, you know you're a good photographer when you just happen to land on proper exposure without knowing it. Sorry, no, that's just about me. If you notice, my exposure is on 0, and that is the name of the game. Okay, and we're now focused, and we're focusing in on here. My hand is fully in focus. We still have each film canister in focus. Struggled a little bit there. I'm going to bring this way a little bit. Perfect. And I don't know if anybody was able to guess, but what's this? That for you is an outlet, in case you were wondering. Okay, and now, since I showed you what it is like to focus your background and fully texture there, I'm now gonna go ahead and unfocus the background for you, and we're gonna do this all in reverse. So, last time I said I wanted to mess with the aperture first, and I do, but before I mess with the aperture, I actually wanna mess with my ISO. Remember, my ISO tells me how grainy my photo is. The lower the ISO, the less grainy, less pixelated your image is going to look. I'm in a very bright environment. I have strobe lights on, okay? So I already know my ISO needs to be very low. I'm going to adjust that first and watch what happens to this image. So ISO. And as I adjust that ISO, it goes brighter and brighter. I'm gonna go to an ISO low. I'm gonna go to an ISO 200. And my image gets darker and darker. I'm now on ISO 200. Now I'm going to adjust my aperture. Oops, I'm gonna confirm that I want 200. There we go. And now I'm gonna adjust my aperture. And as I lower my aperture down, we're bringing light back into the subject. We're on a 1/8. I can focus. We are still way overexposed. If you see here, that MM is telling me plus 1.3, and I am all sorts of super bright over here, blurring, but not, I have no detail. So now I'm going to adjust my shutter speed. And as I adjust my shutter speed, we see the light coming back down. And now we see the M0.0 back to perfect exposure. And I have blur back here again. Hand is not in focus. We have blurring in the wall here, soft textures, and we don't know what that is. And yet my film canisters are both perfectly in focus. And that, folks, is how you blur using the Nifty 50. Thank you so much for joining once, maybe twice. I really appreciate your guys' support today. I'm gonna go ahead and put the lens cap back on my Nifty 50 for you guys. All right, I'm gonna thank you all so much for joining. Make sure, if you haven't already, you like and subscribe so you can get notified to our next Sony seminar. We do these on a regular basis for you, so make sure you get all the alerts so you can stay tuned to find out all the new tips and tricks we have for all of our great products, okay? Also, I don't know if you guys do or not, but have you registered your products lately? Because you totally should, okay? These are all electronics, and when you register your products, you get alerted to our firmware updates that keep your products running and optimized to the peak performance, okay? And if you're an avid Alpha user like myself, when you register your select Alpha products, you get extended warranties. I don't know why I'm whispering that. You get extended warranties. when you register your Sony Alpha products. Select Sony Alpha products, okay? Also, we're giving away free stuff just for registering. We are having raffles and contests and all kinds of cool, fun little giveaways too. So if extra warranties for your peace of mind wasn't enough, who doesn't like some free stuff? All right, and so Dan, thanks so much for joining in. Is there some kind of equation for what your settings should be for the shutter speed ISO? So thanks so much for the question. If you notice there, when my camera was on, there was the 0.0 and it had a plus and minus next to it and it had MM. That is what I'm reading, is what it's telling me is perfect exposure. So you have an exposure triangle and you can adjust all three corners of the triangle to get that number to be 0.0. So it's not that you have a perfect number or a perfect combination. It's every lighting situation and every artist is a little bit different in how they want their creative style to be. So no, it's up to you and it's up to the lighting that you choose to shoot in. Great question. And I want to leave you guys with a chance to vote. These seminars are all about you. These seminars are giving us a chance to connect with you, our customers. Since these seminars are for you, why don't you get a say in what we talk about? So I have 3 topics for you guys to vote on. The first one, would you like to hear about the 24-70 G Master Mark II versus the 28-70 kit lens? That, by the way, the 24-70 G Master Mark II, that is one of my favorite lenses. I own it. Or we could also show you the G Master 50mm 1.4, also one of my favorite lenses, versus the 28-70mm kit lens. So again, that was the 50mm G Master 1.4 versus the 28-70mm kit lens as your option number 2. Option number 3 could be your 85mm 1.8 versus your 28-70mm kit lens. If you're not watching live, make sure you drop your vote in the comments. If you're watching live, make sure you drop it in the comments. I don't really see any votes just yet, but we'll be monitoring them. Thanks again so much, everyone, for joining me today. I really appreciate your time, and shout out to David again. Thanks for all your hard work behind the scenes. That is all I have for you guys. Have a wonderful evening and take care. Bye now.